Revenge films.
This is a story of my sister and my fiancé being so stupid and getting too many people involved that they cause their own lives to self-destruct. My name is Kelly McDonald. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, and I have a younger brother named Alex and a younger sister named Michelle. I was engaged to my boyfriend of 5 years, who I'd been dating since college. We had finished all the arrangements for the ceremony and the reception, and we were counting down the days on our 2 hands when the unthinkable happened. My younger sister Michelle, who was 5 years younger than me, said she was pregnant with Thomas's child. This all started when Thomas came to my house to meet my family for the engagement. At the time, Thomas was 25 and Michelle was 20. Ever since our college days, Thomas and I were often going to and from one another's parents' house, and Michelle treated Thomas like a brother. However, when he came to officially ask my parents' permission to marry me, he was cleaned up sharply in a suit, and seeing him make an official greeting to my parents must have made Michelle think that her Prince Charming had arrived on his white horse. Just for her. She made up a different fairy tale in her mind, and with no regard for anyone around her, she went in for the attack. It's hard for me to admit this, but Michelle is pretty cute. Having such a young, cute girl like Michelle hitting on him, Thomas must have lost all self-control. And it didn't take long for the 2 of them to get together. Of course, there was no way that we could go on with the wedding like this, so just days before the ceremony, everything was canceled. When I tried to collect a settlement fee from her, "You should be grateful. You love Thomas, and I'm carrying his precious child in me." Michelle made this outrageous statement and was desperate to avoid paying the fee at all costs. I didn't pay any mind to that, though, and despite being called a penny pincher, I went ahead and collected a settlement from the both of them. To make matters worse, even my parents said, "Michelle is pregnant, you know, and wouldn't it be so sad if the baby didn't have the father around?" and asked me to hand over my fiancé to her. I was the one who was hurt and yet isolated from my own family. My younger brother had been watching all of this, seemed to take my side, saying,
"I can't stay in a family like this. I'm done."
and piggybacked onto me, leaving the family with me. It all happened so suddenly, but I went around and explained the situation, including the reason for calling off the wedding to all of the guests that I had invited on my side. "At least you found out before the wedding, and you dodged a bullet from marrying a man like that." Everyone tried to cheer me up, and they certainly had a point. However, in the following days, people said that they were still receiving invitations to the wedding that was meant to be canceled. I couldn't believe it, but everything that had been arranged for Thomas and I, they simply swapped out the bride and decided to move forward with the ceremony and the reception. I found out from one of my colleagues who had received an invitation, and when I confirmed this, it truly felt like my heart was struck by a bolt of lightning. Not only had my younger sister stolen my fiancé, she was also stealing the wedding of my dreams. Because all of the cancellation fees of the venue had become Thomas's responsibility, he must have thought that if he just changed the bride and continued on with the ceremony and the reception, he could avoid paying the cancellation fee altogether. If anything, they would be receiving congratulatory money, so he probably realized that it might be an opportunity to gain money instead. As expected, everyone in attendance was shocked, and it went in shambles. My junior colleague actually went to the reception, and from what she told me, first of all, Thomas's parents were confused. He must not have told them that the original engagement had been canceled. Then, upon finding out what was happening, the mother went straight to Thomas and Michelle right before the ceremony and slapped them right across their faces. This was explosion number 1 in the dressing room.
"Miss McDonald, what is going on here? Where is Kelly? Why is the bride Kelly's younger sister?"
Like we said, she's still a blood-related sister. It's just that the bride has been changed to her now, that's all. There really isn't such a big problem.
"Are you kidding me? This is a huge problem!"
Thomas's mother and my mother got into a raging argument. On top of that, everyone who had heard that the bride was going to be a different person wasn't in attendance, and the venue was empty with only a third of the guests showing up. In the midst of such an awkward scene, Thomas's guests and the few friends that my sister had invited were confused and muttering amongst themselves. Thomas's parents promptly called together their relatives and guests and explained the situation. Once they found out what had happened, one by one his relatives, including his parents, got up and left, telling the 2 to do as they wished, but good luck on their own. The guests continued to leave, and the venue became even more scarce, leaving the rest of the attendees even more confused as the ceremony started. And finally, the bride and groom arrived, but since they had been scolded and trashed by Thomas's parents, they didn't look too happy, resulting in even more commotion. My colleague showed me a photo, and the two of them looked like they had just seen a dead body. They must not have told the wedding planner or the venue either, because the entire ceremony, the MC continued to use my name. Almost as if to sink them even deeper.
The groom, Thomas, and the bride, Kelly, are friends from college and...
He even included stories specific to me. To this, the attendees were tipped over the edge. Hey, Michelle didn't go to college, did she? And isn't Kelly actually her sister's name?
Wait, could this mean that she stole her own sister's fiancé and slept with him? And then she even stole the entire wedding ceremony too?
Now that you mention it, I don't see any family from the bride's side besides the parents. Is that why? They had caught on. In the meantime, Thomas's friends had also figured out the situation for themselves and were already ignoring the wedding ceremony as they started to eat and drink like it was a college party. And so the group of friends remaining ate what they could and without even waiting for the introduction of the bride and groom, got up in the middle of the reception.
This is so outrageous.
And left one by one. In the end, there was nobody left besides a sobbing Michelle and my flustered parents. And a Thomas who looked like he wanted to die. For the venue, it must have been hell for them to have to deal with this group from start to finish. As if by cause and effect, the story doesn't end here. With the start of his new life ahead of him, Thomas was shunned by his family, his relatives, and his friends. Michelle and my parents were also being ignored by the rest of our relatives and were isolated from the family. My father's side of the family were already living far away, so they of course kept their distance. But my mother's parents, who lived nearby and had always taken care of us, were livid after hearing what happened and cut off ties with them too. Thomas had also invited his colleagues and bosses from work to the wedding, and after seeing how stupid he truly was, he was ostracized at work and felt pressured to quit. For better or for worse, it's a really tight industry, and the rumors spread quickly. So all of the related companies had heard what had happened, and despite his efforts to find another job, it was rejection after rejection. In the end, he had to get a part-time job, and that was the start of their newlywed life. They couldn't even get together the money for the settlement fee, and of course didn't receive any congratulatory money from the wedding. And that, combined with the wedding venue fees, had brought their savings account to a whopping zero. They ended up going into debt to the point where they didn't even have enough money to give birth to the baby, and they had to go to my parents for help. I forgot to mention that since my parents' side of the family had all refused to attend, in order to fill seats, they had desperately invited random people like their elementary school friends. They became the laughingstock of the neighborhood and the family, and my father was no longer able to take it and left my mother before he even reached retirement age. My father had kept it a secret from the family that he had retired at an early age, and so all the retirement funds disappeared along with him. They had been planning on paying back the mortgage on their home with this retirement money, so that was all left on my mother's shoulders, who had been a full-time housewife with no income. It was around this time that Michelle and my brother came crawling to my brother and me, trying to play innocent. My mother's home and her car, and Michelle's credit card loan and childcare costs, as well as taxes. They were behind on all their payments, but my brother and I both turned our backs and refused to help. My full-time housewife mother and the unemployed Michelle had no one else to rely on besides Thomas. I heard he was finally able to get out of his part-time job and find full-time employment again, but his salary was half of what it was before, and they're all stuck in a financial disaster. In the midst of that situation, they became pregnant with their second child and are so caught up that they can barely keep their heads above water. Me, on the other hand, the president of my company introduced me to a kind and wonderful man, and I felt like I had scored the game-winning goal. My friends and relatives attended my proper wedding, and when they reported it to my sister and her family with some ridicule, it made them all go crazy at once.
How dare you not invite your parents? You're a disgrace to the family.
After being left by her eldest daughter and son, my mother had turned into a desperate witch. Thomas wasn't my Prince Charming after all. I really made a mistake. My sister had become a defeated damsel in distress.
I messed up! You're the one that I truly love, Kelly! Please, let's start over!
Thomas had turned into a pathetic Romeo. The three of them kept trying to drag me into the ridiculous fairy tale, and so I got a lawyer involved to take care of them. It was no surprise that these idiots who thought that they could just swap out the bride at a wedding didn't know what shame or embarrassment was, and therefore didn't have the brains or the heart to handle the consequences either. To this day, the people who saw it all unfold say, "That was a crazy time. I'm so glad that you were able to get out of it." But these days, I have an idyllic life with my kind and thoughtful husband and our 2-year-old daughter. If anything, when I think about the fact that I wouldn't have this life if it wasn't for their stupidity, I'm a tiny bit grateful to the two of them. And so I'll be happy just knowing that idiots like this exist. And in the end, they got what they deserved. My name is Kane Murita. I had a bit of a complicated upbringing. Because both my parents passed away before I entered middle school, I was raised by my grandmother. My grandmother passed away when I went into the 6th grade, so I started living with my older brother, who was in high school at the time. My brother dropped out of high school to get a job, and because of this, he didn't have many options for work, so he always had multiple part-time jobs or was always on dispatch duties. This life continued until I graduated high school, and I got a job working as a hostess at a club while I attended college. I didn't want my brother to keep bearing all of the responsibility. I wasn't even planning on going to college in the first place, but my brother insisted.
I don't want you to suffer like me. You have a brighter future.
He pushed me to enroll, and I ended up going to a college, or I could get national qualifications. My brother was really against me working as a hostess in a club.
You can take out a student loan or try to find scholarships. I'll help you pay back the debt, too.
I knew he meant well, but because my parents had also carried a lot of debt and committed suicide because of it, I hated that word more than anything. And so, despite my brother's insistence, I decided to continue working as a hostess to get myself through college. Now that I'm a mother with children of my own, I can understand why my brother was so against that job. But I don't regret it at all. After earning my national qualifications, I successfully graduated college and got a job as a nurse. My days in nightlife are far behind me, but I still stay in touch with the club manager and some of my colleagues at the time who I got along with well. About 5 years ago, I met a man who accepted me, even knowing my past, and got married to my now ex-husband. We were blessed with 2 little treasures, and for about 3 years, we lived happily in peace. That is to say, if only we hadn't become involved with his parents, my in-laws. My brother-in-law and mother-in-law were the scum of the earth. I could understand why they would hate me after knowing my past in nightlife, so I was able to tolerate them calling me parentless and a loose whore. But they also came after my brother, which I refused to accept. They would point at my brother, who had been working since he was young and had become quite ill, and called him uneducated, human trash, waste of space, and I couldn't stand it. Despite this, my husband supported me, and I was able to move on because we kept our distance from his family. His family owned a business in their hometown. My brother-in-law and mother-in-law had both graduated from prestigious universities, which they were very openly proud of. They bragged that they were able to earn so many assets on their own as the first generation in their family. But I also knew that it was a bicycle operation and that their business wasn't actually doing well. On top of that, they both spent money without a care, and I don't know what basis they had to be acting so big all the time. They would frequently call us trying to ask for money without an ounce of humbleness or respect, as if it was expected. I was able to dodge them for some time until one day, an unfortunate event resulted in having to live with them. My in-laws' family was destroyed in a house fire, and they hadn't put any fire insurance on the house, so my kind husband regretfully told them they could live with us. Ever since then, they don't work, and they don't do any chores or help around the house. My husband and I were being tossed around by these 3 money-sucking leeches in our house. In the beginning, I really did my best to try to make it work. That's why I tolerated their harassment, their bullying, and even their reckless use of our money. However, the worst part about it was seeing my husband, who had been such a great dad to our children, slowly but surely start behaving like them too. Every time I would point it out to him, he would promise me.
This time I'll protect our family.
And I would believe him, but eventually he would betray my trust over and over again. One day when I wasn't home, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law had taken my 2 daughters and put them outside in the yard half naked. As if that wasn't terrible enough, the young girls had masking tape across their mouths and they were tied by a rope to a tree in the yard. Luckily, they told me that they hadn't been outside for long and they were okay. But the 2 of them were clearly terrified of my husband and his family. My mother-in-law said something like, discipline. But the more I pressed the story, I found out that my mother-in-law and brother-in-law were speaking so badly of me that my 2 daughters tried to stand up for me. That angered the 2 adults and they kicked the 2 young girls outside into the cold. I couldn't believe that my husband was standing by doing nothing. If anything, it was as if he was taking their side. I was devastated by this and realized that there was no way that we could rebuild our relationship anymore. I didn't want to get a divorce. I wanted him to regret the way that he had treated my daughters and the pain that he had caused all 3 of us. From there, I began preparing my plan. I explained the situation to my brother and his wife and had them look after my daughters while I went back to my in-laws and continued to give them the money as if nothing had happened. At the same time, I canceled my bank account and I moved all of my savings into a separate account and followed up accordingly. This way, after the divorce, it wouldn't affect the division of property and I wouldn't lose any of it. Our house was newly built, but it was under my husband's name, so I skillfully coaxed him into mortgaging the house so that he could borrow money for his mom's leisurely expenses. My husband didn't have a clue, so he went to loan as much money as he could. My mother-in-law and brother-in-law weren't working, and I knew that my husband's company was already going down the drain. So all I had to do was wait until it was bankrupt. During that time, I went and found a lawyer who was known to be strong in divorces, and in order to be able to have the upper hand, I also hired a detective agency. Eventually, as expected, my husband's company went bankrupt. My husband and his entire family had become dependent on my income and had no other way of survival. At that time, I invited my father-in-law and brother-in-law out on a night on the town. I knew that they both liked playing with women, and yet were also the type to look down on hostesses and women. They also loved to show off, so I knew that they were easy bait for women in that industry. I reached out to my old club manager and my old colleagues and explained the situation to them, and I asked them to dote on the 2 losers and rack up their bill as much as possible. I didn't say anything about paying for them. All I did was introduce them to the women. Knowing their personality, I already could predict that they would try to get me to pay. 3 months later, I let them drink to their heart's content with the girls. Of course, I didn't put down a penny for them. When they realized that I wasn't going to pay, they started inviting my husband to go drink with them. And that was because they knew that my husband had mortgaged the house and taken out a loan, and therefore he had money. By this point, my husband had been completely brainwashed by his family, and I later heard from my colleague at the club that he was saying,
My wife is the same as you all. A trashy girl who came from the slums that is worth nothing. Thanks to that trashy girl, I guess I have 2 kids, but turns out the kids are just as much a trash as her.
and was trashing not only my colleagues, but his own wife and daughters.
I wanted to go after him right then and there and serve him the divorce papers.
But my former colleagues were amazing. You don't need to worry about us. We're perfectly fine to listen to his stupid rant. Men like that are easier to trap anyway. They kindly calmed me down, and I knew that I just had to be a little more patient for the plan to come to fruition, so I held on. They were showing off to the hostesses, and of course, it wasn't long before their savings ran out. My in-laws had been hiding this, but I knew before they even moved in that they had already gone bankrupt. In the end, as a result of mortgaging the house and losing all of the money they had borrowed, they fell into a hell of a debt on their own, with nothing they could do about it. That was when I had the lawyer, who had been waiting for the right moment by my side as I served the divorce papers. They were of course counting on my savings, but I had already canceled all my accounts and put it all into a safe as cash. No matter how much they tried to find it, they wouldn't be able to find anything. They don't have the funds to launch any kind of investigation anyway. The house was under my ex-husband's name, but because it was built from the savings account that I had from before we got married, I hadn't taken any loans out for it. When I remembered how much money I had spent on building the house for us, I did feel a little regret, but that didn't matter when I thought about my daughters. After all of this, my husband was crying and begging on his knees to me, but it didn't affect me at all. You took your own pain and frustrations out on my children. I most certainly do not need a husband like that, and I also do not need any of you either. I can and will raise my children on my own income. I declared this to them and put them in the past. Although the divorce was mostly my husband's responsibility, I decided not to collect a settlement fee nor child support, and instead asked to cut off all communication with them. I made them swear not to get involved with me or my daughters anymore, by making them sign a contract. Should they ever even try, they'll quickly be fined. They had also looked down on me so much as a former nightclub hostess, so I wanted to get revenge on them for that and give them a taste of how smart and strong us women were. As for my children, I was worried that they were traumatized by that experience, but while they were staying with my brother's family, it seemed like they had a really good time. By the time I had finished my revenge plan and gone to pick them up, they'd completely returned to their old happy selves, and I was relieved. My ex-husband and his family were forced to become homeless after that. No matter what they tried to do, their debt was probably more than they could ever pay back within their lifetime. And they were so desperate that they ended up having to get involved with the loan shark. This got back to my ex-husband's family and he was fired. And apparently the four of them are left desperately running away from the collectors. Despite their attempts to get away, of course, nobody was going to rent a house to people that were carrying so much debt. And so they had no other choice but to remain homeless. Some of you might think, how sad, and maybe I took it too far. But I have no intention of sympathizing with the scum of the earth who would put 3- and 4-year-old little girls through that kind of hell. I hope that they spend the rest of their lives regretting treating my daughters like that.
This is the story about my terrifying ex-fiancé, Steven. Steven was a prankster who loved playing practical jokes on people. One time during a thunderstorm, he contacted me saying that he was struck by lightning, and I found it funny and endearing at first. But a few years after we had started dating, and even after we had gotten engaged, it escalated, and Steven started to show his true colors. After we had gotten engaged, with marriage in sight and to prepare for our future as a couple, we moved in together. At the time, we had put a loft bed in our room, the height of which was about 5 feet from the floor. It was summertime, and it was so hot that we were laying in the bed where the air conditioner could easily reach, when all of a sudden, Steven started to push my body from the side. We had been laying down with me toward the edge of the bed, and Steven on the side against the wall. Obviously, I was being pushed toward the edge and was about to fall off the bed, so I half-jokingly said, "Hey, cut it out." Steven was also laughing, but he continued to push me further and further toward the edge. Of course, I wasn't strong enough to stop a man's forceful push, and I started to get scared and yelled, "Seriously, stop it! I'm actually going to fall, so stop!" over and over again, but Steven just said,
"Oh, come on, you're gonna be fine!"
and kept laughing. Another day, we were talking about something and got to the topic of body hair removal. That's when Steven suddenly went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife and said,
"Don't you think we could get rid of your body hair with this?"
and pointed the knife toward me. Of course, I went into a mini panic with such a sharp object like that pointed in my face and backed up saying, "Hey, stop that, that's dangerous." I don't know if he was doing this as a joke or not, but Steven grabbed my arm tightly and yanked me toward him, putting the knife right on my arm. "I told you to stop, please!" I yelled at him, to which he shrugged and laughed, saying,
"Jeez, it's just a joke. Why are you getting so serious?"
But I couldn't even crack a smile. Ever since then, I started to worry whether it was the right decision to marry Steven or not. Of course, we had already met each other's parents and they were looking forward to our marriage, so it would be a problem for us to break up without a valid reason. I didn't know what to say or do, and fell into a hole of contemplating alone. During that time, my older sister Angela suddenly came to our house.
So sorry to barge in like this. An emergency came up. Would you mind looking after the baby for just a little bit? I should be back within an hour.
And handed me her baby. My sister and her husband lived at home with my parents, but that day my parents happened to be on holiday to the hot springs, and her husband was on a business trip. I had looked after my sister's baby a number of times at our parents' house, so I was used to feeding him and changing his diapers too. But more than anything, my sister really seemed like she was in a rush, so I agreed to help. When Steven saw the baby, he said,
"Whoa, it's so cute. We're gonna have one of these one day too, huh?"
"Yeah, I guess." There was no way I could just say that I was rethinking our marriage, and I faked an empty smile just to pass over the situation when the baby must have gotten hungry and started crying. "It's not the diaper, so it must be the milk." Hold on 1 second, okay? I'm going to get the milk for you now. And so I went to the bag that my sister had brought over and pulled out the set to make the baby's milk. As I was in the kitchen, the crying baby suddenly went silent, so I went back to the living room thinking Stephen had held the baby and sweetly calmed it down, but instead met with a shocking scene in front of me. Wait, stop! What are you doing? Stephen was grinning as he was holding the baby's nose and mouth shut while staring straight into my eyes. The baby couldn't breathe and was suffering, turning more and more red by the second. As soon as he let go, the baby started screaming and crying even louder.
How annoying! Shut up already! It's just a little joke!
The moment I heard those words, the anger burned inside of me. I slapped Stephen right across the face. A joke? Are you kidding me right now? How can you say this was a joke? Do you have any idea what you've just done? If you do something like that to a baby, of course the baby will die.
It's just a little joke! When is it gonna stop?
Hearing that and watching him laughing, I couldn't stand it anymore. Get out! Get out of this house immediately! I chased Stephen out of the house in tears and ran straight back to hold the baby. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. After that, my sister came back from her emergency and I explained what happened with tears streaming down my face, apologizing over and over again. I even started to tell her my concerns of marrying Stephen. That's when my sister said,
You absolutely cannot marry a man like that. There's still time. You can still break off the engagement. You have to.
I know that's what's best. I didn't think that he was that kind of person. I never thought he would take it this far. With my sister's support, I officially decided to break off the engagement. I went straight to Stephen's parents' house to talk to them about it. Unfortunately, after chasing him out of our house, Stephen was there.
Oh, did you have a change of heart? And are you finally here to apologize to me?
Huh? Why should I have to apologize to you?
Slapped me straight across the face, don't you remember? If you don't apologize to me right now, I'll never forgive you.
There's no need for you to forgive me, because you and I are nothing anymore. I came here today to end things with you. I explained to Stephen's parents what happened with the baby, and also told them of all the dangerous things that Stephen had been doing to me recently, and told them that I would break off the engagement. His parents' faces were drained and went pale, and they immediately bowed their heads down, saying, We're sorry. We're so very sorry for our son's behavior.
We will take our son back to this house, and it's only right that you should break off the engagement with him. We apologize for the pain that he has caused you, and we're just so relieved that your sister's baby was okay.
However, Stephen butted in.
Why is that enough to break off an engagement? All I did was try to make you jump a little. It was just a prank!
With zero guilt over what he had done, or any understanding of the danger he put the baby in. That's when his father took a fist straight to Stephen.
Stop messing around! How do you not realize that you were this close to becoming a murderer? That's not something you could sweep under the rug as a prank. And not to mention, it was a helpless baby who couldn't even defend himself. Just thinking about it makes the hairs on my neck stand up. You're not even a human! You're the devil!
The father's face was bright red as he gave Stephen an earful. Meanwhile, the mother had fallen to her knees, with her head hanging down toward me. In the end, thanks to Stephen's parents, I was able to break off the engagement, and they even agreed to pay consolation money to me in full. But that relief was temporary, because after that, Stephen started to follow me around and I would see him everywhere. I reported this to Stephen's parents, and they would do their best to drag him back, but he had become a full-on stalker, and I had to get the police involved. I got so scared that I had to ask my parents to drive me to and from work, but even at my workplace.
Please go get Amy. I'm her fiancé.
He would show up and demand that my colleagues go get me, so I wasn't even able to go to my office, and eventually I had to make a transfer request to another branch. The request was granted, and when I was packing and organizing my things to prepare for the move, Stephen showed up and smashed a window to break into the house. Ah! Ever since the engagement was called off, I had changed the lock so that Stephen couldn't come inside, but because the apartment building was full, I was still stuck in a first-floor room. That was a mistake. After breaking into the apartment through the window, Stephen opened his mouth.
Why is the engagement called off? I don't recall ever agreeing to that.
I can't. I could never marry someone like you. It's impossible. Stephen came closer and closer, and I was terrified. His eyes were completely empty, and by the way his soulless eyes were looking at me, I truly thought I was about to get killed.
I don't get it. Even you were laughing, Amy, saying my jokes were funny.
Because they were funny in the beginning, but how can I laugh anymore? I can't laugh at all with your dangerous actions. There's something wrong with you, Stephen.
You're the one that has something wrong. Where's your sense of humor? It's not too late yet, Amy. Let's get married.
After saying that, Stephen lunged toward me and put both hands around my neck.
If you don't listen to what I say, I'm going to choke you!
And was laughing. Right then, I heard sirens outside and the police came jumping in.
Arrest him!
At the same time that I heard the policemen, and before I could wrap my head around the situation, Stephen was already pinned down.
Let go! Let go of me! I'm going to marry her! I'm gonna marry Amy!
Stephen kept trying to yell out into the air, but he was forced into the police car and taken away. Immediately after, Stephen's parents came rushing in, followed by my sister. Angela! I was so scared. I grabbed onto my sister and started sobbing like a child, but that's how scary Stephen was in that moment. I really thought that he was about to kill me. Later, Stephen was charged and found guilty of attempted murder and was sentenced to prison. Apparently, the more tests they did on him, the more that they found he had psychotic tendencies. And rumor has it that he's been placed in a psychiatric prison. He may continue to claim that he was joking in that moment, but with his hands around my neck, I could see it in his eyes that he was not kidding. I'm sure he won't be coming out from behind bars anytime soon, but I hope I never have to hear one of his jokes ever again.
My name is Ashley. I was born and raised in the city, and my parents raised me with love and care all the way until I graduated college. I was born with a leg disability, and most days I spend my life in a wheelchair. After I graduated college, I was able to get a regular office job, but I continued to live at home with my parents. However, when I eventually changed jobs, I met Connor, a colleague 2 years my senior, and we began dating shortly after. Connor had the dream of developing an agriculture business on a remote island. I loved listening to him talk about his dreams and aspirations with so much pride, and I was always rooting for him. Around the time I turned 27, Connor quit his job and wiped his plate clean in order to shift all of his focus onto making his agriculture dream a reality. He was really going for it. To pursue this, he was going to move to a remote island far from the city. Saying that he wanted me to come with him, he proposed. There was no guarantee that the business would do well, and combined with my disability, my parents were extremely worried. But when they met Connor in person and saw what a passionate person he was, they approved of the marriage. Our life on the island started off amazingly. Every day was fun and a new adventure. We worked together to learn about agriculture and the local landscape. And as we expanded the business, the profits came rolling in. Around the time the income was stable and steady, it was perfect timing to find out that I was pregnant. We had been trying for some time, and my husband was thrilled. This should have been the happiest time of my life, but instead, this was when it all came crashing down. When we found out I was pregnant, my husband made a suggestion to me. That was to have his mom, my mother-in-law, move in with us. My mother-in-law was living alone in the city, and as her only child, he had mentioned that eventually he wanted to live with her. He also said that he was worried about me raising the child alone from a wheelchair. So he added in the suggestion that she can support me during and after the pregnancy. I had met my mother-in-law a number of times before, but I didn't feel like I knew her that well, so honestly I was already feeling nervous about living with her. However, since my husband kept insisting with such tenacity, I wasn't able to say no, and we ended up having his mother move in just before I was about to give birth. My mother-in-law seemed like a kind person on the outside, but as soon as we started living together, I was shocked to find what a cold personality she had. Even though I was pregnant and in my 3rd trimester, she would make me clean the floors, clean the bathrooms, clean the toilets, and tried to make me do all of the chores around the house. And if I showed even a little bit of fatigue, she would sharply snap at me. "Look at this! The floor is still dirty! Why are you slacking so much?" "I'm sorry, my stomach is really swollen right now."
What's wrong?
"Connor, your wife Ashley is lazing about the chores. Tell her, make her do something about it." I figured my husband was going to take my side, so I hid behind him to get protection. However, it was as if my husband had transformed into a completely different person, and he started telling me off too.
Just because you're pregnant, you better not think you can slack around here. If you can't listen to what my mom says, then I'll have you out of this house in no time.
What?
Mother, are you okay? You must be tired after having to raise your voice like that. My mom has trouble with her ears and vocal cords, so don't make her stress them anymore.
I'm sorry.
Hurry up and finish your cleaning so that you can help Connor up with his work.
Yes, ma'am. I learned this for the first time as we started living with her, but this was how I found out that my husband was a mama's boy. Whatever she said was always correct and the truth, and if my mother-in-law got angry, he would come straight to me and spit the blame onto me. Despite the discomfort of life like this, I was able to safely deliver a healthy baby boy. We named our son William. As we began our lives as the four of us living together, my mother-in-law and husband's harassment only escalated. My mother-in-law would have something to say about every little thing I would do with my newborn baby and scold me with the harshest words.
Ugh! You see, William is crying. He's probably not getting enough breast milk, that poor boy. You can't even produce enough breast milk. You're a failure of a mother.
It should be coming out, but what's wrong? Are you hungry?
Come on now, hurry up and make him stop crying. It's so loud and annoying. It's ringing in my ears.
I'm sorry. My husband was with his mother. He became a monster just like her. But when it was just the two of us on our own, he was back to his kind self that I knew before. I was confused and concerned by this double-sided personality of his. But his kind side was my only savior in this whole situation. I grit my teeth, and 2 years later, we were blessed with a baby girl. We named her Sarah. Raising the two children was a handful, but watching them grow day by day made me really happy. Around this time, my husband's business was really taking off, and the annual income was more than we'd ever seen before. This helped us move to a large house on the ocean side for the 5 of us to live in. We even became well known around the island as a rich family. As his business became more successful and changed for the better, so did my husband's personality. But for the worse. Up until then, he had still been kind when it was just the two of us alone, but there wasn't a shadow of kindness to be seen anywhere anymore. On top of that, when he would come home from work and have a few drinks, he would get unreasonably angry and aggressively start hitting me. Welcome home.
I was out drinking today, so I don't need dinner.
All right then, well, you can go take a bath first.
Excuse me? I just came home from work and I'm exhausted. And now you're giving me orders? Who do you think you are?
That wasn't what I meant.
Impudent wife, who do you think is allowing you to live like this? Connor is the one supporting your life in that wheelchair, you know.
Exactly! You know what? As a successful businessman who's on the winning team in life, it's embarrassing to have a wife like you that's stuck in a wheelchair. Come on now, get up!
My husband lunged at me and pushed me, forcing me out of my wheelchair and onto the floor. When I struggled to pull myself back up onto the wheelchair using my own strength, my mother-in-law and husband just stood there and laughed.
Stop acting so pathetic.
How comical is this? You're so useless.
I managed myself back into my wheelchair in tears, and when I got back to my room, I was greeted by my 2 angels sleeping. I really wanted to talk to my parents back home about this whole situation, but during the day, my mother-in-law was always home, and my husband was controlling my cell phone. As soon as he would come home, he would confiscate it from me, so I wasn't able to talk about it to anyone. Because of that, I also had 2 small kids, so I couldn't get a divorce, and in order to protect my children, all I could do was deal with this abuse. That's what I told myself as I tolerated the escalating harassment and domestic violence from both sides. As the business continued to grow, my husband's company started hosting events and presentation dinners more and more often. Occasionally, the children and I would get to attend, and in those situations, my husband would always play the role of the kind, hardworking, thoughtful husband who was doing it all for his family. Normally at home, he would constantly tell me that my wheelchair was bothersome and in his way, and he would never lend a hand towards me. However, in front of others, he would show extra effort in making sure that he always had one hand offered to me. Seeing this, everyone around us would always tell me what an amazing and perfect husband he was. As a result, he became the subject of various magazine features and local television reports. the more he started to sell himself as the family-oriented businessman. One day, a reporter from a well-known magazine came to our house for an interview. You quit your job and risked everything in order to begin this agriculture business, and your success has been amazing.
Yes, I was nervous in the beginning, but with my wife by my side, we worked really hard to make my dream a reality. Our reality today.
Would you say that your wife's support was a really big part of your success?
Of course! I'm eternally grateful to my beautiful wife, who's been there for me every single step of the way.
You two truly are the dream couple.
Thank you very much.
When the reporter went home, my husband sank deep into the couch and let out a long sigh. Great job today.
I hope you know I don't actually think any of that.
What?
A wife like you stuck in a wheelchair like that, you're just baggage, and that's all you are to me. Why should I be grateful to you?
And this became the regular routine. In front of people, he would compliment me to bits, and at home, he would tear me apart verbally and physically with his harassment and abuse. It became a seemingly endless cycle. Unable to leave this situation, my children eventually turned 3 and 5 years old, and around that time, William started to fear his father too.
I'm home! William, come here! You want to take a bath with Daddy?
I want Mommy.
What?
Mommy, let's take a bath together. Me too! Sarah too! Just wait a minute, kids. I need to prepare your daddy's dinner first. But Daddy's probably not going to eat it anyway, right? He always just throws it away without eating anything. My teacher at preschool always says that you can't waste any food.
What did you just say?
I'm sorry, please don't hit me. William, I'll be right up, so can you take your sister to the bath first and get ready?
I sure hope you haven't been brainwashing William, have you?
Is this your tactic? I bet you put him up to this.
No, I didn't say anything. I'm going to take a bath with the kids now. My husband was generally nice to the kids and usually didn't get angry with them or hit them. However, the kids would watch him and his mother regularly hit and mock me, and so they'd become fearful of both their dad and their grandma. If things went on like this, I thought it was only a matter of time before he or she would start being violent towards the kids, and the thought of that sent chills down my spine. I wasn't going to let that happen, and I started looking for any opportunity I could to leave this house. That being said, being confined to a wheelchair, there was no way I could escape the island with 2 kids and myself, so I needed someone's help. However, my husband was checking my cell phone back to back every single day, so I knew I couldn't reach out to my parents back home for their help. As I waited for my opportunity, time just kept ticking on, and the longer we stayed, the more famous and popular my husband got. He was a household name on the island by now.
Oh, hello! I saw you the other day. Weren't you on TV?
Thank you so much for watching it. Although it is a little embarrassing for me.
Oh, and you must be his wife.
Yes.
This is my wife, Ashley. Isn't she beautiful?
Wow, of course you have a beautiful wife. You must be so happy to have such an amazing husband like him. I'm honestly so jealous of you.
Thank you very much. I did my very best to muster up a smile, but somehow it wasn't enough and I angered my husband. When we got home, the avalanche of insults and punches and kicks ensued.
What was that fake smile you did back there? It's almost as if you were trying to tell them you're unhappy.
I'm very sorry.
Do you think this is funny?
What's the matter?
Mother, this woman just tried to make a joke out of me. How dare she?
She did what? You in a wheelchair trying to make a joke out of Connor? That's enough already, you worthless little roach.
My mother-in-law stood in front of me and with her full strength slapped me across the face.
Ow!
Mommy!
William, go back to your room.
Don't bully my mommy!
Bully? Don't say it like that. People will misunderstand. Can't you see that your mommy is making everyone's life here difficult? It was her own fault.
Mommy, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay, so please just go back to your room and wait there.
William, you can leave her alone. Why don't you sleep with Daddy tonight?
No, I don't wanna. I wanna sleep with Mommy.
Why do you say that? Do you not like your daddy?
I hate everyone who hurts my mommy.
What did you just say? Did your mommy put you up to this? You come here right now!
Stop! Stop it! Don't hit Mommy! husband didn't stop. He continued punching me over and over again, and including my face, I was covered in bruises from head to toe. My son saw it all and was standing there crying the whole time. My husband finally calmed down. I took my son and my daughter back into their room, and William grabbed onto me as he was sobbing. "I'm sorry. I know it was scary." I petted him on the head gently, but then he looked up at me with a determined face. "Why are you saying sorry, Mommy? I thought you're supposed to say sorry when you do something bad. Daddy should be the one saying sorry." "That's right. That's exactly right, Will." I'd reached my limit. If it was just me, then maybe I could have somehow tolerated it. But I couldn't let my children be part of this too. I decided that I was going to take these kids and get out of this house no matter what it took. The next day at night, my husband came home in a rare good mood.
I'm home! Mother, listen to this!
Oh, did something good happen?
Today I got a phone call from a major television network in New York. They're doing a live broadcast of the Happy Family Project, and they want us to be in it. This is a national TV show. I've made it. I'm finally gonna be famous around the country, and someday around the world.
Whoa, that's amazing. Although I can't say I'm too surprised, my wonderful son.
The whole family's gonna be on TV thanks to me. William, Sarah, aren't you excited?
Yay, TV!
Oh yeah, hey you! If you try to pull that same fake smile crap like the other day, I hope you know what would happen.
Yes, sir. I'll be careful. My husband must have been in an awfully good mood that day because after he finished his drink, he went to sleep earlier than usual. Usually he would confiscate my phone before going to sleep, but today he seemed to forget about that. I knew this was my chance, so I grabbed my phone and went back to my room. I called my parents straight away, but because it was already quite late, they were probably asleep already and didn't answer the phone. I started writing a long text message to them to explain the whole situation, and that's when I suddenly heard the door open. My husband was standing in the doorway. I tried to hide the cell phone immediately, but it was too late.
Who could you possibly be texting at such a late hour? Show me!
I tried to hold onto the phone and delete the message, but he forced it out of my hands and began reading the message I had started. I knew that this wouldn't end with just a few fistfuls, and I was overcome with fear and desperation. I was worried that the children would wake up, so I tried to get out of the room, but he pinned both arms behind my back and dragged me into his own room. Over the course of the next few hours, he yelled at me, threw things at me, hit me repeatedly, and threatened me.
There's no use trying to get help from your parents. As long as I'm here, they'll never get anywhere near us.
I can't do this anymore. This life.
Shut up! I'm the one working hard and earning all the money for this family. Supporting every single one of you, even you in that wheelchair. What could you possibly have to complain about?
I can't tolerate your violence and abuse anymore.
As if you're in any position to say something like that. Don't even try to stand up to me when you can't even walk. I'll be confiscating your cell phone for good, and I'll never give it back to you ever again.
That cell phone was my only way of communicating with anybody outside, and with that gone, I had lost my chance. I racked my brain trying to think of any way I could get help without using the cell phone. When a plan popped into my head, I knew that this was my last chance, and the only chance I might have to escape this hell. And so I began planning. A few days later, after finishing his meetings with the TV network, my husband came home once again in a jolly great mood.
Every day I have so many people that are so interested in my life, it's exhausting. I guess this is why famous people have such a hard time. The broadcast is going to be next week. The show is called The Happy Family Project, so you all better be ready to put on your best smiles when you respond to the interview.
Wow, that's amazing. Only you could do it.
Obviously. Who do you think I am?
Oh yeah, I really want my parents to watch the live broadcast too, so will you let me send them a message about it?
Are you planning on doing something behind my back again?
No, of course not. I just want to tell them to watch the TV show when it airs.
All right then, I'll send them the message.
Okay, please don't forget. I want them to see how happy we are too.
That's a good point. That way, even if you're far from your parents, they won't be worried or suspicious in any way.
Exactly, so please make sure you send it. The day of the live broadcast. There were a lot of people in our house with a large cast and crew from the network. My kids started getting anxious. Mommy, when they say happy family, are they talking about us? That's right, Will. But are you happy, Mom, even though you're always being hit? Mommy's happy because of you and Sarah, but I promise we're going to be happier from now on, so don't worry. Really? The 3 of us are going to be happy. Yeah!
All right, is everyone ready? We're about to connect to the network. Good luck. We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
The host began with his interview with my husband, who put on his usual charismatic smile and answered question after question with confidence. When you moved from the big city life to the island life, what were some of the difficulties that you faced?
It took a while for us to get used to it. It was a rocky road at the start. But as a family, we worked hard to overcome those bumps, and that's how we got to where we are today. Nowadays, we really don't face any difficulties at all.
I heard that you made your house fully accessible for your wife.
Yes, well, of course. I wanted to ensure that my wife could live with as much independence and freedom as any of us at home.
What a kind husband. Has he always been like this ever since he was little? Tell us what he was like as a child, Mrs. Connor's mom.
Of course he was. He was always a really thoughtful little boy who would try to understand the pain and struggle of people around him.
How wonderful. And Ashley, as his wife, you must feel so lucky. The host directed a question at me, and as I saw the camera zoom in on me, I put my plan into action. I lifted up my shirt and showed my stomach and back. Everyone in the room was stunned. At first they were confused by my sudden action, but the moment they saw the bruises covering my stomach and back, I felt the room freeze over. Is that? These are all the bruises and scars from the daily abuse and violence that I get from my husband.
Whoa, what are you saying?
I think this one here is from when my mother-in-law kicked me and I fell out of my wheelchair.
You need to stop right there!
Dad, Mom, are you watching? Please come and save me and the kids.
Stop! Stop the cameras! This is all a trick! It's a setup!
You useless wife in a wheelchair.
What? Hey!
Isn't that what you always say, Daddy, when you're hitting Mommy?
William!
You're supposed to say sorry when you do something bad, and you still haven't said sorry to Mommy.
Shut up! What have you done?
I just wanted to tell the truth. How can I sit here and let them broadcast on national television that we're a happy family when we're not?
Are you kidding me?
Connor came lunging at me, and the people from the TV network panicked and stepped in between us. This was, of course, all happening live, so within seconds it was all over social media and all over the internet. In an instant, my husband's fame went from being the amazing family man to the abusive and violent husband. Seeing the bruises and scars on my body, the people from the television network felt it was too dangerous to leave us there, so they helped to keep us away from my husband and my mother-in-law. They arranged for me and the kids to stay in a hotel that night, and on top of that, they helped me call my parents, who arrived the next day to the hotel. My parents came running to me and the children, both of them with tears streaming down their faces.
I'm sorry. We're so sorry. We should have been here to help sooner.
Come home. Come back to our house with the kids, and we can all live there together.
Thank you. I want to go home. Being reunited with my parents and feeling a sense of relief and safety for the first time in years. I sat there sobbing for who knows how long. My parents said that the people from the TV network had arranged a car for them. So that day, they went to my house where my husband and mother-in-law still were.
What was that you said about our daughter? Useless in a wheelchair? How dare you!
We have every intention of filing a report and taking you to court. But don't you ever think about coming anywhere near our daughter or grandchildren ever again!
No, you have it all wrong! This is all a misunderstanding!
Please, not a report!
You think you have any right to make requests?
As my parents were handing them an earful, the neighbors and other island residents who'd been watching the live broadcast had gathered outside of the house. There was a huge commotion as people started raising their voices.
I was watching you on TV, you shameful devil! Get off of our island!
Like I said, this is all a misunderstanding!
A misunderstanding. We all watched as you lunged for your wife's neck. It was all caught on camera.
This has to be a joke! My life is over!
If you don't hurry up and get arrested, I can assure you, you won't be able to sleep at night.
We will be mailing you the divorce papers. We never want to see or hear from you ever again. so you can work it out with our lawyer from here.
Lawyer? Divorce?
That's right, of course. And we'll be taking our daughter back with us. No! How? Mother, do something!
There's nothing I can do.
I'm successful! I built this all myself! I was on the winning team! I don't want to lose anything!
After that, we went to file a police report and my husband was arrested. At the same time as the divorce, I was able to collect my settlement fee as well as child support fees, and my husband was forced to drain his bank account to me. After being arrested, my husband lost his job. He tried to sell the house, but nobody wanted to buy it. His company got destroyed to dust, and he ended up going into a deep debt. He showed the entire country his true abusive nature on live television, and for a while after that, he was trending all over social media. He was recognized everywhere with fingers and glares pointed at him. He finally got the fame that he wanted. Even after he gets out of prison, I can't imagine he'll be able to come back to society. As for his mother, she was no longer able to stay on the island and decided to move. But since her face was right there on TV as well, she became scared of the public eye and went into hiding somewhere far away. Now free of both of them, my children and I moved back to my parents' house and started our new lives together. Thanks to the settlement fee we received from my husband's abuse and harassment, we were able to live comfortably, and I can take my time finding my next job. My parents were thrilled to be able to live with their grandchildren, and since they made my family a priority and supported me with my kids, I was finally able to relax and spend some time with myself. That allowed me to slowly start to heal from the years of harassment and domestic violence. And little by little, I was able to take back my genuine smile and my life. My husband sent me multiple letters of apology and regret, but I didn't bother reading any and wound up ripping them up and throwing them away. No matter how much they may try to apologize, I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive them. With a mountain of debt and a criminal record to his name, even after he gets out of prison, I can only imagine how difficult my husband's life will be. I can only think of it as karma for all the years he spent torturing me and the kids. I sincerely hope he spends the rest of his life faced with the guilt and regret of his own doing. As for us, we'll continue our lives as a truly happy family. I'd been wanting to get pregnant for a long time, and my dream finally came true when I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The moment he was born, the doctors and the nurses had a strange reaction, and once things had calmed down, I found out that my child was born with 6 fingers. My husband was there and my mother-in-law arrived shortly after. The nurses tried to tell us that this happens often, and that it's not anything too abnormal, but no matter how much they tried to make light of the situation, the hospital room felt like a funeral home. The doctor explained that they could do surgery to get rid of the extra finger, but I couldn't focus because in the bottom of my heart, I felt bad for the child, as though it was my fault that I wasn't able to give birth to a normal body. My husband and my mother-in-law kept their long faces as well, so I figured that they must have been feeling the same way. Neither my husband nor my mother-in-law said anything particularly harsh to me. They just said, "Congratulations, you did a great job," and the standard words that are meant to be said, but I could see the concern written all over their faces. Throughout the whole pregnancy, I couldn't wait to meet the baby, and we talked so much about what he might look like. But all I could think about now was why me? Why my baby? And how sad it was. Even then, of course, the baby was as cute as ever. After going through such pain to give birth to my very first baby, there was nothing in the world that I loved more than him. That's why it hurt even more. Other than that, it was a successful birth, and I was able to start breastfeeding him and start changing his diapers. All the things that a new mother should enjoy. However, I still wasn't able to look directly at his hand. About 2 days later, my sister-in-law came to see the baby. To be honest, she wasn't my favorite person, and I usually try to avoid her. It's not that I don't like her or that she's a bad person, she's just hard to read, and I could never tell what she was thinking. Because of this, I was worried about what she would think or say when she saw 6 fingers on my baby's hand. But the baby was healthy, and he and I were staying in the same room, so there was nowhere we could hide, and we had no excuse to not see her. In spite of this, my sister-in-law spoke to me in her usual fashion. "Congratulations! I'm so happy for you!" "Thank you." She might laugh at the fact that he has 6 fingers, or she might come after me for not being able to give birth to a normal baby with 5 fingers. I assumed the scenarios and was prepared for the worst. However, to my surprise, both of those were wrong. As soon as my sister-in-law got closer to the baby, she immediately noticed his hand. "Was he born with extra fingers?" "What? Well, yeah. What was she going to say? Without even thinking, I started to mentally prepare myself to endure my sister-in-law's jabs when she explained, "This is amazing! This is so lucky! He was only just born and he already has more than anyone else!" With her eyes sparkling with excitement. What? I mean, isn't that true? This just means that this boy is extra special. She laughed. Her reaction was completely unexpected for me. Even as the one who gave birth to him, all I could think about was why he had been born with 6 fingers, and was thinking negatively this whole time, but my sister-in-law in front of me didn't even have a shadow of negativity around her. On top of that hand that I was having so much trouble even looking at, she was grabbing with both hands and squeezing tightly, saying, "What a tiny little hand! How cute!" and kept complimenting my baby. When the baby was born, my husband and my mother-in-law and even myself were all stuck in the dark. And even though our brightest little boy had been born, we couldn't see the light. But for the first time, my sister-in-law seemed to be so genuinely happy and excited for the baby. And seeing that made tears stream down my face. That shocked my sister-in-law. "Wait, what? Why are you crying? Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's just that seeing you so happy and excited about him made me really emotional. I mean, you just gave birth to this incredibly cute little baby. Of course I'm going to be excited." It made me question what I had been seeing in my sister-in-law all this time, when she was this beautiful of a person with so much kindness in her. After hearing these words from my sister-in-law, I felt like I shook off all of the darkness that was around me and had a change of heart. You're so right. Every time I'm typing on my laptop, I also wish I had more fingers. I laughed with tears still falling from my eyes. I know, I totally get that! My sister-in-law laughed with me. Even after that, my sister-in-law kept admiring the baby, playing with his little body and saying how cute he was over and over again. Every time I heard those words, it warmed my heart and made me feel even better each time. I never thought that my sister-in-law, who I had been avoiding all this time, would be the one to kick away all of my negative feelings. This made me open up to her and tell her everything that I'd been feeling up until then. She listened, and apparently when she went home, she spoke to my husband and their mother. "You do realize that the baby is the cutest in the world and there's none other like him!" And tried to brighten everyone's mood. When the two of them heard her say that, it must have opened their eyes, and later when they came to visit me, they both apologized.
I'm so sorry. I worked so hard and went through so much to give birth to him, and yet my attitude was so terrible in the aftermath. When my younger sister spoke to us, it made me realize how wrong I was.
Me too. To tell you the truth, I was never a big fan of your sister, but she didn't laugh or make any jokes about the fact that our baby has 6 fingers. Instead, she was the first person to show genuine happiness about him. When I saw that, it also made me realize that I shouldn't have been so negative all this time. Even my mother-in-law apologized for acting so strangely after the birth, and all in all, I was really saved by my sister-in-law. After that, the funeral home-like air had completely cleared out, and I was always grabbing my baby's hand, feeling nothing but love and bliss. I also became a huge fan of my sister-in-law. At the same time, I was embarrassed by how judgmental I was in the past. I truly couldn't figure out what I had seen in her to make me feel that way all this time. As time went on, my husband and mother-in-law would of course play with the baby, but my sister-in-law would also come whenever she could in between her work and to hang out with us. "You can eat normal food now, right? Anything?" "Yep, I sure can. I have to breastfeed him, so I've been eating a lot." "Well then, here you go. I baked a vegetable chiffon cake for you today. Let's have some together." "Wow, this looks amazing. There's even whipped cream on top." "This is cream made out of soy milk. Just have a little bit with each bite." "Wow, thank you so much. I'm so excited to try this." "Oh, but be careful not to eat too much, all right? This cake is to celebrate you giving birth, and I don't want you to throw off your diet too much." "I get it." "Thank you." We had become so close that you would never think that I used to avoid her. Even my husband and my mother-in-law were surprised by our friendship.
I never expected you and my sister to become such good friends. Since you guys are so close now, even my sister comes to scold me. "You have to make sure you're taking care of your wife!" My mother was surprised too, asking me when you two became like that. And then now sometimes she can't tell who the real siblings are.
We were messaging each other all day yesterday too. She always gets so excited when I send her photos of the baby. Once I leave the hospital and can go outside, we're going to go shopping for baby clothes together.
It almost feels like I had my wife stolen by my own sister.
We had become so close that even my husband was starting to get jealous. Eventually, I was discharged from the hospital, and a little while after that, after multiple discussions with the doctor, our baby had the operation on his hand. Honestly, none of us even cared so much about it anymore, but we were worried that people may not be so kind when he got older, so we made the decision to have it removed. The surgery went smoothly. Now we look at our baby with 5 fingers. Thank goodness it all went well! And we're all really relieved every time we look at him. He's so small and still a baby. So we're all on edge knowing he was going to have surgery. Even after we were discharged from the hospital, anytime she finishes work early, my sister-in-law will come over and... Look at these! Aren't these clothes so cute? I can't wait to see him in them! She never comes empty-handed, usually with a new set of baby clothes that she just got for us. That's so cute. Seriously, you've got such good taste. He's going to look so cute. Next time, let's put him in these clothes and go to the park. That's a great idea. Let's. Oh, by the way, we were thinking of having his birthday party at our house. Can you make it? What? Really? I can come? You know I'll be there. Of course. I've invited your mother as well. I would love for you guys to help me with the preparations. And I was hoping I could ask you to make the cake, since your cakes are the best. Leave it to me. As we were talking about the birthday party, my husband came from work.
Come on, you're here again? Do you live here now?
It's almost become a routine, and this is his tagline every time. It's not like I'm here to see you anyway. I'm here to see the baby and my sister-in-law. These adorable sibling interactions have all become a part of my everyday life. My sister-in-law says she's not thinking about marriage or kids anytime soon, and she says she wants to focus on her work for now. But if she ever finds a great partner and they have a baby, I hope I can give her baby as much love as she gave mine.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.